So, welcome everyone. Hope you had a good lunch. So we're going to talk about Alexa, which is Amazon's voice recognition service. I'm not working for Amazon, so it's not a sales pitch. It's not that I say that the Amazon solution is the best one. It's just one of the voice recognition solutions. And I like this one because it's fairly open, as you will see later. Is the noise really hard, or is it just me? Can you tune down the volume? Not? Okay. I'll try to speak more softly then. Okay, so I work for a company called InfoSupport. I'm a trainer there. I talk at conferences and play with cool stuff, basically. So what's Alexa? I already said it's a voice recognition service. So you can do things with your voice to control all kind of devices. And what will I discuss in the next 50 minutes? This basically is the outline. Questions are put at the end, but please feel free to interrupt me in between, and I'll try and answer your questions directly. But first I wanted to give a bit of an introduction on the background, because what's the Internet of Things, basically? It's fairly popular nowadays. You hear it everywhere. Every product you buy, they brand it as an IoT product. So it's something which most of the times it has a chip on board. It does something. And it does some communication over some kind of wire or wireless communication. But the thing is, I've been at a conference where I spent an hour of my life listening to a talk where somebody told, like, I have a really cool light, and the light changes color based on the humidity, the temperature of the room, etc. And I really liked the idea, but after like 50 minutes, somebody asked, okay, and how is this connected to the internet or a network? And the guy said, yeah, basically we haven't thought of that yet. And basically it's just an LED changing colors randomly. So he sold us some Internet of Things solution, which was basically just a blinking LED in a nice enclosure. So be careful if you buy something which is labeled as IoT, because sometimes it's just garbage people try to sell you with a fancy term on it. But for me, it's all about infrastructure and sharing data within your home or outside of your home. And so what does that have to do with home automation, where I think Alexa is a part of? I think most people, when they do home automation, they control the lights in their room or the temperature with their smartphone. But it's possible to control other things as well. I've got a short movie from a colleague. I found this really intriguing. It was not the standard stuff you see normally. He had 2 rooms, a living room and a bedroom, and he only had 1 television. So in the end, he made a turning wall, and I really liked the idea. So I also asked him, like, okay, can you make it move faster? Then maybe you can use it as a fan as well. But he didn't try that yet. And my guess is it would have been cheaper and at least quicker to simply buy 2 TVs. But this is way cooler, of course. And the fun thing is he showed us the video while he was in another country, so he could control it from another country with his smartphone. I don't think it has any use to control it from another country, because then you cannot see your television, but hey, it's cool. So for me, home automation is like a subset of IoT. The stuff that you do in your home, that's why it's called home automation. But with home automation, you have some challenges. But by the way, I'm just curious, who of you already have some kind of home automation, controlling lights or stuff like that? Okay, so few people already, yeah. I think it's getting more and more approachable. In the beginning, it was mostly standard equipment which you could buy, but it was really expensive. Later on, you could build it yourself with Raspberry Pis and other stuff, but then it was a lot of work. And now there are coming more and more solutions that are working out of the box, and you don't have to fiddle too much with it and are still affordable. But there are some challenges. I mean, if you want to control your home with your smartphone and it's empty, you need to charge it. So then you have to walk to your smartphone. And By the way, I don't think you can do any smart home automation with this smartphone, but I don't know, how many of you had a broken screen on your smartphone? I think most people had a broken phone somewhere in their life, and then you cannot control your home anymore. And I've seen people who could open the door with their smartphone, but then if your smartphone is broken, you cannot enter your apartment anymore. I mean, it's kind of silly. And there are other things. I mean, sometimes when I'm at home with my wife and my kids, we have a discussion and we disagree. I have another opinion than my wife. Probably that only happens at our place, but and then we are like, okay, how can we say who's right and who's wrong? And of course, you can look it up on your smartphone, but then your food gets cold and it's a bit rude to play with your smartphone while having lunch or dinner. So that's a bit difficult. And another thing, I mean, if you're comfortably sitting on a chair and your smartphone is laying somewhere else, you don't want to get off your chair, of course. So for me, smartphones, they are a little bit like Batman. They were cool in the past, but they had their best time. Nowadays, you have Alexa, and this is the Echo Dot, which is a device with which you can use the Alexa voice recognition API, and that solves a lot of the problems. But first, what's Alexa? It's not a girl that's working really hard somewhere. It's simply a voice recognition service in the Amazon cloud with lots of logic in it, with machine learning in it, that they implemented a lot of stuff for it. So it's nothing manual, it's all automated. So to just give a short demo, if I say Alexa, 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 Java programming language. Yeah, probably it doesn't really work with the microphone. Alexa, Wikipedia, Java programming language.
Java is a general-purpose computer programming language that is concurrent, class-based, object-oriented, and specifically designed
Alexa,
to have as few implementations.
Stop. But you can also use it to, normally, I mean, I can control it from the other side of the room, but apparently it doesn't really like my microphone. Maybe too much noise around it. Yeah. Can you change the name? Yes, you can change the name Alexa, and that's really helpful, especially if you have a neighbor that's also called Alexa. My colleague tried it, and he has a young girl next door, which is called Alexa, and yelling, Alexa, stop, Alexa, stop, Alexa, stop, is a bit awkward then. So there are like 3 built-in keywords that you can use, yeah. And you can do multiple things with it. So I can use it to query basically Wikipedia, but I can also say, Alexa, play TuneIn Radio.
Getting the last TuneIn station you listen to, Dance FM UAE.
But you can also couple it to Spotify or anything else that you like. And the fun thing is, while playing music, you can still ask useful questions like, Alexa, where can I hide a dead body?
I'd take the body to the police.
Alexa, what's the weather in Amsterdam?
Currently, in Amsterdam, Netherlands, it's 72 degrees with clear skies and sun.
Alexa.
Today, you can expect mostly sunny
Alexa.
weather with a high of 83 degrees
Okay.
and a low of 69
Alexa,
degrees.
stop. Apparently now I said it too often, because normally it would continue playing the music. But apparently I shouted too hard, so it doesn't like me anymore. So you can basically ask anything about the weather, about the traffic. When you drive to your work, you can say what your work location is, and you can ask how much traffic there is, so you can leave earlier or later, depending on the traffic. So basically anything you want, you can do it with Alexa. And the cool thing is, I mean, this is the device that Amazon is selling. They sell a couple of different devices, but you can also build it yourself. So what I did was, I took a Raspberry Pi. It's behind this one. So a Raspberry Pi touchscreen, the speaker, which is also shown here, a microphone. I replaced this microphone with a smaller one, with this one, that's easier to carry. So with that, I can do basically the same stuff as I can do with the Alexa device from Amazon. So that's really cool. You can build your own solution with it. Of course, it's a bit less powerful. The Echo Dot, the one you see here, it has 7 microphones in it. It will do noise reduction and all kinds of cool stuff. And that's, of course, hard to build yourself. And there's a complete guide from Amazon where you can install everything and configure everything. It's a Java application, so you can customize everything you want because it's completely open source. As a bit of a comparison, so there are a few Echo Dots or devices that Amazon sells, where the cheapest was like $90. So then I built my own solution, which was like $80, $90, and I was like, okay, that's a fairly competitive solution. But 2 weeks later, Amazon released a new one, which was only $50. So. But I liked it. It's a lot of fun. And one of the things I'm going to talk about a bit later as well is if you build the solution yourself, you can control everything you want. So if you're concerned about your privacy, you can simply check when you're sending data to Amazon, to the cloud, and when not. And with the device from Amazon, it's of course, they say it's only listening when you say the Alexa word, but who says it's not listening all the time? I mean, that's a bit tricky if you're privacy concerned. In the beginning, the solution that ran on my Raspberry Pi, it had a few minor disadvantages. Using Spotify or other sound providers wasn't working, but they fixed that. In the beginning, you also had to press a button to start recording, but they fixed that as well. So if you ever tried it, try the new version. It has lots of improvements in it. But I think the main disadvantage of the Raspberry Pi solution is that it costs you quite some more time. You have to build the hardware, you have to install everything and get it up and running, but I quite liked it. And it's a bit more expensive. But the cool thing is you have all the flexibility. So you can add extra microphones, maybe put one microphone in one room, another microphone in another room, use multiple Raspberry Pis, whatever you want. You have full flexibility. Most of you probably don't try this at home, probably will end up badly, but so if we use Alexa for home automation, what can we do with it? So this is a movie a colleague of mine made because his home is already completely automated. And what he did, he simply connected the Echo Dot to his existing solution. And that took him only like an hour or something like that. And now he can control the sunscreens and the lights in his home. So you now see the sunscreens, they're moving down. And that all with this interface, which basically is OPENHAB. It's in Dutch, but I think it's self-explanatory. It's simply controlling the lights in the room, the temperature, volume of his media system, and stuff like that. So now it's going upwards again. And we should also see some lights going on in a moment. Yeah, so now it's all the lights on. So the fun thing is, of course, you can use this to completely start your home automation experience. But you can also simply add this to an existing home automation solution. That's the nice thing. It's really open, and you can connect basically anything to it. For instance, OPENHAB. OPENHAB is a Java solution for home automation, and it enables you to define interfaces like this. So really pretty interfaces which enable you to either do just touchscreen and use your smartphone to control it, or you can couple Alexa to this solution and then control it with your voice. And it simply works by sending commands. So we have different items, like a light in our living room, and we can send a command on or off, and we retrieve status updates as well. And the status update is really cool because if you have a light which you can control with your voice, but also with a switch, then within OPENHAB, if I press the switch, I can see the status update in OPENHAB. And if I do it with my voice, I see the status update as well. So you always see the current status of the switch. It looks a bit like this, so you have to define rules and items, and then you get a nice graphical overview. So it's still, for non-programmers, I think it's a bit difficult. It takes some time to get used to, but they released a new version recently, and they're working on making it easier for people to use it, easier to configure. So I think that will benefit them more. They will probably attract a bigger crowd by that, because now it's quite some work. If you're into programming, then it's easily doable, but if you're not into programming, it will take you a while. So I couldn't bring my sunscreens in the airplane, but I brought something else. It's a smart plug from TP-Link. So basically, with a smartphone, I can switch power off or on. So now it's on, and now it's off. And what I wanted to do with it is connect it to Alexa, to just have a simple demo to show you how it works. And for that, I use if this, then that. Anybody familiar with this service? Okay, a few people, okay, nice. So if this, then that is simply a service which enables you to couple different things together. So if I say Alexa trigger switch off, then I send a command to OPENHAB. And that's just one example. Got a few others here as well. So it's just a website where you register and then you can do all kinds of stuff. So I also have an if this then that applet which adds an item to my to-do list. So if I say Alexa, add shopping to my to-do list, then I will get an email with my current to-do list. And if I say trigger SMS, it sends me an SMS. So I can couple basically anything to each other with if this then that. And then it basically looks like this. So from our Echo Dot, we go to the Alexa cloud from Amazon. From there, we go to if this then that. From if this then that, we go to my OPENHAB, which basically is a solution to make your OPENHAB instance available on the internet. Because my OPENHAB, it's also running on this Raspberry Pi. So I need a way to connect OPENHAB on the Raspberry Pi to the internet. And I do that with my OPENHAB, which is basically the preferred solution. So OPENHAB on my Raspberry Pi, and on my Raspberry Pi I have configured everything to enable and disable this one. So now I can demo this. So if you look at the bottom right, you see that my laptop is now charging. And if I say, Alexa, trigger switch off.
Sending that to IFT.
Now you see it's off. And you see it's almost immediately. You don't really notice the delay while it's going to the internet. It's really quickly and really easy. And if I say, Alexa, oh wait, I forgot one thing. Of course, I also have to demo the cool interface with OPENHAB. So basically, this is a really simple OPENHAB interface with my TP-Link switch, and it's now off. And if I say, Alexa, trigger switch on.
Sending that to IFT.
That's strange. Alexa. Alexa. Okay, so it really doesn't like me today. Alexa. Trigger, it's on? Okay.
Sorry, I don't see that IFT trigger.
Right. Normally it works out of the box, of course, but when people are watching, it gets more difficult. So this is simply to get started, basically. So we can easily couple stuff together, but it's also possible to create our own stuff. And we can do that with so-called skills. And skills are basically functionality for your Echo Dot or for your Alexa device. And you can program them yourself to basically retrieve information or to control stuff. There are also default skills available. Skills are a little bit, if you have a smartphone like an Apple, you have the Apple Store. Skills are a bit like that. So you have some skills available in a store already, and you can build your own skills. There is also a skill which makes you order pizzas. I think it's only available in the US. But I found that a bit tricky, because if my daughter would figure out how to say that, because there is one sentence, reorder lost pizza again, if she would say that like 50 times, I would end up with lots of pizzas. So that's something to be careful with. There are basically a few types of skills, the custom skill and a smart home skill. I've chosen to simply implement custom skills. And then you need a little bit of vocabulary. They have some terms which they use. So if I say this sentence, Alexa ask or Alexa tell, I have to say the name of the skill, which they say is the invocation name, and I have to give some command, in this case hello, and that's the utterance. And then what happens is that the utterances are mapped to the intents. So we have my first intent with hello, and we have an utterance which maps on it. I will show it in code in a while, because it's really simple to program this. The cool thing is, when you want to deploy or run these skills, you can first program them in Java, but also in Node or in Python or in C# or whatever you want. You can run them locally or on some server that you have, or you can run them on AWS Lambda. Who of you already played with AWS Lambda? Okay, a few ones. I really like it. It's what they now call serverless, which is also a big hype, which basically means is that you no longer reserve a server and leave it running for a year and sometimes use it. No, you simply upload your application, and Amazon takes care of the scaling. So if you don't use it, Amazon stores it somewhere away, and if you're using it, Amazon scales it up automatically. And you pay per request and per processing time. So you no longer pay for all the time that the machine is running without doing anything. So that's really something that's cool for me. I've heard some critics say like, yeah, but performance-wise that's a bit tricky because it's hard to say how the performance will be. But yeah, it depends a bit on your application. If you're really performance concerned, then maybe this is not the best option. But for applications like this, where you automate your home, I mean, it doesn't really matter if it takes a second longer. And I think the big benefit is you get lots of requests for free. So if you use this in your home, you can probably use it completely for free. Normally when we do this, when we create a skill, what we do is we have to register the skill in the Amazon developer portal. And then on AWS Lambda, we simply say, okay, upload the jar file. Let's simply show that in the interface. So if I have a AWS Lambda, I can say create Lambda function. I simply say blank function because I don't really care. I say I want to create an Alexa skills kit, which is invoking the Lambda function. I say next. And here I can give it a name, whatever basically. And I can upload my jar file here. And that's basically all I have to do and configure a few things like how much memory I want to use and stuff like that. So that's everything I need to get up and running, and then I have an application up and running, and I can connect Alexa to that application. So my skill, the new skill that I create, will then use the AWS Lambda application that I just deployed. The thing is, you need to be a bit careful about that, because not only your skill can use the AWS Lambda application, but everybody can use it if they know where it's running. So they advise to put a bit of security inside it, and so this is without security. It simply enables everybody to use your application which you have deployed. But you can also use an ID. So your Alexa application, once you set it up, it will generate an ID. And you can use that ID in your AWS Lambda application and say, okay, I only accept requests from this ID. So that's something I can highly recommend if you use this in a production environment. So yeah, manually deploying jar files feels a bit like the old ages. It's not really like continuous delivery, deploying small steps once at a time. But luckily there are some good solutions for that. There is an excellent Maven plugin and also a plugin for Jenkins, which basically allows you to automatically upload the application to AWS Lambda. So you can upload new applications or you can change applications in this way. It takes a bit more work to set up in the beginning, because what you need is an Amazon S3 bucket, and that basically is storage for Amazon. So it's a place where we can store our jar file. And we need an AWS role, and that role is necessary to retrieve the artifact from the S3 bucket and create a Lambda from it. But these two things, you only have to set it up once. So after you've set it up, you can create any function that you want without having to do that setup again. And then I can simply add a bit of functionality, call Maven, it will deploy everything. I configure it in the developer portal, and I'm good to go. But let's just make one short example from scratch, just to give you an idea. I also promised you to show you the entire setup. So we create intents. So this is my first intent. And we create utterances. So my first intent only has one utterance, which is hello. And then you have to implement a class called speechlet. Basically, I only implemented a really small part, and that's the onIntent part. And I say, if it's my first intent, then go to the get my first app intent response, and then I'm going here. So every time it's on my first intent, so if I say hello, hello is on my first intent, because we specified that in here, it will go through this logic. So I can add extra intents if I want to add extra logic, for instance, to create a help function, or maybe I want to do two things in my skill. I want to book a hotel room and I want to order pizza. Then I can create two intents for that, or simply create two functions. That's also possible, of course. And then in this short piece, I don't have to do a lot. I simply say what the text is. Let's change this to Devox Poland in Krakow, because there we are. And I can define a card. I should explain that maybe first. That's easier. So I can create cards, and cards basically are displayed in the Alexa portal. So this is the Alexa portal. Here I can configure my Alexa, set the location of my device, and all kinds of other things. And all the stuff, all the cards information is displayed here as well. So before I set send switch on to if, and that information, or no, sorry, I send trigger switch on, that's the command I gave, and that's all displayed in the Alexa portal. So in my example, what I do here is I create a simple card, and I put the text, so this text, on the card. And later when I invoke this skill, the card is displayed in the Alexa portal. And then I simply say return my speechlet, and then it will speak out this text. And there is I use a small Maven plugin for that. So the Lambda Maven plugin, where I can configure the name of the skill, the timeout value, memory size, etc. Memory size is quite important because it's not only used for memory, but also for CPU. So if you want to have quick responses, increase the memory. You can use as much as 1.5 gigabyte for it. So that's basically some of the configuration options that you have for Amazon Lambda. And if I now deploy this, let's see. So my deploying script takes my Amazon credentials, connects to the Amazon cloud, and then uploads my jar file. So if we now go to the Amazon cloud, in my lambdas, I should see a third skill now. So this is the third skill. It's last modified 11 seconds ago, built with Java, of course. And then now we have a running application, but it's not yet an Alexa skill, not an Alexa application. Therefore, we need to go to the Alexa developer portal, and here we can add a new skill. We simply say it's the third skill. Invocation name is third, so then I can say Alexa ask third to say hello. Save. Next. And what's important then is that we need to copy the intents and the utterances so that Alexa will recognize what you say to Alexa. Almost there. And then I have to connect it to my application, and I do that by using the ARN, which is displayed here, and which is specific for my third skill. So I couple that. Say next. Let's see if it's working. Alexa, ask third to say hello.
Hello from Devox Poland in Krakow.
So first time it takes a little while, it has to warm up. If I ask it again, Alexa, ask third to say hello.
Hello from Devox Poland in Krakow.
So now it's basically instant. So if you don't use your skill for a while, so you only use it like once a month, then the first time you will call it, it takes a little while because Amazon is basically scaling it down. So if you want to have quick responses, just write a script that calls it once a day and then you're fine. So this is a really like short example, and now I can say something to Alexa. Oh yeah, a question? Oh, sorry. But I can also create a dialogue. So I can say, Alexa, open a certain skill, and then it will open that skill, and I can keep on talking to it. So I don't have to say, Alexa, ask skill, blah, 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 again. No, I'm in a conversation, and I can just continue talking to Alexa. So there are really a lot of options. I can also do stuff with the input. So if I ask like, Alexa, give me all the information for Krakow, then I can filter Krakow from the request and then look Krakow up in Wikipedia or whatever I want. So it's not only static questions that you can ask, you can make the questions dynamic as well. There are really a lot of options in it. And the nice thing is they already created some examples, which basically are located here, the Alexa Skills Kit Java. So here you have some advanced examples and some more Hello World examples, like the one I've shown you, which help you learn more about how the Alexa API works. So if you want to get started, I can highly recommend it. The thing I was missing was the Maven integration. So I put my solution on GitHub as well. So if you want to integrate it with Maven, then maybe this GitHub link is useful to you as well. So then basically, what I did before with using IFT to connect to OpenHAB, it's not really necessary anymore, because Alexa also has a skill for OpenHAB. And then you can directly use that skill to connect to OpenHAB. So my advice would be, if you want to add new functionality, first see if there is a skill available. If it's available, simply use that one. But when I started with this, the skill wasn't available yet. And if the skill isn't available, see if you can use some integration, like if this then that. And if that's not available as well, then you can create your own skill. Or, of course, if you just want to have fun and program around, you can also create your own skill, but it will take you some more time while somebody else already fixed your problem. So other disadvantages, yeah, except from being ignored, of course. It feels like it's still growing. It's getting more and more mature. So skills, a lot of the skills are a bit silly games, not really useful yet. But there is more and more useful stuff coming out. But it feels a bit difficult sometimes. I mean, you can buy Alexa in the US, in the UK, or in Germany, and it has proper support for those locations. If you're not from those countries, it's difficult. You cannot even get an Alexa from a normal way, but of course through eBay or third-party shipping you can retrieve one. But then I couldn't enter my home address. So if I ask Alexa what the weather is, I get the weather in Seattle, because that's where Amazon is located. And I don't care what the weather is there, basically. Although I today heard somebody saying that there is a hack to fix that as well, but it's all a bit hacky if you're not from those countries. It's more difficult to use it. If you have a bit of an accent, it can be a bit difficult because you have to say really the exact sentences. We're all used to Google nowadays, and in Google we simply enter some gibberish and Google knows what we want. Or it gives some hints, and probably one of the hints is something you want. Alexa doesn't give you hints. It will simply ignore you or say, I don't understand you, if you said the incorrect phrase. So that's a bit more difficult. Yeah, and being ignored, it's not a nice thing. There are also some dark clouds, like privacy. What's going on? Oh, sorry, I heard. Yeah, so the question is, what about different languages? For what I know, they only understand German and English for now. So that's a thing as well. I cannot talk Dutch to it. So for my kids who speak Dutch, it's harder to use. They need to learn English for it. So that's something that they will probably build up in the future as well, and create more languages which they support. But now it's not there yet. So privacy, I mean, this thing is listening, and yeah, it's sending all kinds of stuff to the cloud environment. If you ask something to Alexa and your daughter shouts your PIN code or some personal information in between, that's all stored in the cloud environment. And so it's a bit a concern for privacy. And also what I told before, it's all coupled to your Amazon account, to your credit card on your Amazon account. So if somebody walks into your room, and there are lots of comic strips already about it, somebody can say, order 10 tons of rice. And then it's on your credit card. So that's really something to be aware of, because it cannot distinguish between your voice and the voice of your neighbor, or your daughter, or your wife. So that's really something I think they should improve, and make some kind of mode where you can just make it payless, so only give it features where no credit card is required, and only if you have the correct voice, then it will use your credit card to buy whatever you ask it. And I know that I think Amazon didn't really release it yet, but I believe Google, they already have a bit of support for that. So it's getting in that direction, and I think now when the competition is picking up between Google and Amazon and Apple, they're all releasing stuff like this, it will get better and better. Big advantages, it's new, so it's cool. It's a lot of fun. I mean, it's all running Java. You can create the skills in Java. The Raspberry Pi stuff, it runs in Java. So it's really fun to play around with if you're a developer. But it's also really useful. My colleague had it for a few weeks, so he could record the video for me. And at first his wife said, yeah, why do I need this geeky device in my home? I don't want it, and etc. And then after a few weeks he had to return it to me because we only had one, and his wife was, yeah, can we maybe buy one? Because it's really easy to use, and his children were already playing games with Alexa. And you can learn a lot with it, because Alexa can also be used to spell words. So it supports only English, but it can help your children learn English, stuff like that. So it integrates really quickly within your home. Within a few days, you're basically used to it, and it simply works. So I think smartphones, as we know them today, will disappear for a large part. We will move more and more towards voice recognition, and not so much typing anymore. Simply talking and everything around you will magically work. So for a short conclusion, I think it's really easy to integrate. So if you have home automation devices or any other devices that you want to connect, if you want to connect it to your email, to SMS updates, to anything basically, it's really easy to integrate. And lots of solutions are already there because lots of people are playing with it. And if there's nothing there, you can simply program new features in Java or in Node or any other language you want. So you quickly get used to it, and it's a lot of fun to play with it. Because there are lots of useful stuff you can ask, like, Alexa, where's Chuck Norris?
If Chuck Norris wants you to know where he is, he'll find you. If he doesn't, you won't know until it's too late.
So there are all kinds of gimmicks in it, and it's really fun to simply play around with it. Some people spend days trying which strange things you could ask, so there are lists of stuff you can ask on forums on the internet already. So basically that was the presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them now. Contact me on Twitter or approach me afterwards. I'm still on the conference today and tomorrow, so any questions? Yeah. Okay, so if I understand correctly, your question is there a restriction that the Raspberry Pi solution only works in the US? I can answer that simply, no there isn't, because I set it up in the Netherlands and it worked. So, but I have to admit, when I tried it yesterday, I couldn't connect anymore. So I don't know if it's currently still working, but it was working perfectly, but I haven't updated it for a while, so maybe I'm running behind. But it should work. Other questions? Yeah? So the question is there any way to authenticate the person that is speaking? At the moment, not that I'm aware of. Of course, you could build something where you supply a password or something like that, but I mean, everybody around you can hear that password, so. Oh, by the tone of the voice? No, as far as I know, that's not there yet. But they're working on it, and I think the device that Google made, they already do a bit with it, but they didn't release it. So what they did is, lots of comics nowadays on television, they say, Alexa, order this, and then your Alexa starts listening. And I know that some companies made a solution that it didn't listen anymore to the specific voice of the advertisement. So they have some kind of solution for it already, but it's not broadly released yet. So that's something that hopefully will come in the future. Okay, yeah? Yeah, so the question is, can you do this offline? No, the only thing that works offline is the recognition of saying Alexa. Everything else is processed in the cloud, and as far as I know, you cannot run it on-premise because it's, yeah, everything there is in the cloud with machine learning and everything, and I don't believe they open source that part, only the client part, so I don't think it's possible, no. Would be better for people who are privacy concerned, but okay, good question. Okay, then thank you all and have a good conference.